Before Gideon became a leader, he wasn't a warrior, he wasn't a king, he wasn't even confident. When we first meet him, he's hiding, threshing wheat in a wine press, afraid of the Midianites who ruled over Israel with brutal force. Now let's be honest, does this sound like someone fit to lead an army? Probably not. But here's the first big leadership lesson. Great leaders don't start fearless, they start with doubt, but they don't stay there. Think about it. How many of the most successful leaders today started with confidence issues? Some of the world's greatest CEOs, athletes, and innovators began their journeys questioning themselves. The difference? They took action anyway. So what happens next? Something extraordinary. An angel appears to Gideon, calling him a mighty warrior even though he's hiding in fear. Imagine you're Gideon. You're terrified, yet someone calls you a mighty warrior. Would you believe it? Gideon certainly didn't. He immediately doubted himself. He questioned God. He asked, "How can I save Israel? I'm the weakest in my family." Sound familiar? How often do we tell ourselves that we're not qualified, that someone else is better suited for the job? But here's the thing. Leadership isn't about where you come from, it's about where you're willing to go. Gideon had no special background, no military experience, yet he was chosen because leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about being willing to take the first step. So what does he do? He asks for a sign, and then another, because even future great leaders need confirmation sometimes, and you know what? That's okay. What matters is that when the time came, Gideon finally took action. Gideon finally accepts his calling, and when he looks around, he has 32,000 men ready to fight. That sounds like a strong army, right? But here's where things get interesting, because instead of using numbers to his advantage, God tells Gideon to shrink his army, not once but twice, but... Now let's pause for a second. Imagine you're leading a company, a sports team, or even a personal project. You'd think the more people, the better. But here's a hard truth. Bigger doesn't always mean better. The right people matter more than the number of people. So first, Gideon tells the fearful to leave, and just like that, 22,000 men walk away. That's 2/3 of his army, gone. Fear is contagious, and in leadership, the wrong mindset can spread faster than any external threat. The first lesson? Not everyone is meant to go with you on your journey. Now Gideon is left with 10,000 men, but then, God tells him to reduce it even further. Then comes the second test. Instead of picking the strongest warriors, God tells Gideon to watch how the men drink water. Seems strange, right? But this wasn't about hydration, it was a test of awareness and discipline. And just like that, 10,000 became 300. Imagine being Gideon, from 32,000 to just 300 men, and yet here's the leadership lesson. With the right people, you can accomplish more than with the wrong crowd. The same applies in business, sports, or life. The question isn't how many people are with you, it's who is with you. Do they believe in the vision? Are they disciplined? Are they ready for battle? Now Gideon had his 300, but they weren't elite soldiers, they weren't armed with the best weapons, so how could such a small force possibly stand a chance against an army that outnumbered them 450 to 1? Here's the game changer. Gideon didn't rely on strength, he relied on strategy. Instead of fighting with swords, he fought with psychology. Great leaders know that sometimes the best way to win is to think differently. Gideon's army surrounded the Midianite camp at night. They didn't have swords or shields, instead each man had a trumpet, a torch hidden in a jar, and no weapons. The men were confused. How was this going to work? Imagine this moment. You're standing there expecting a battle plan. Instead you're handed a trumpet and a jar. You might be thinking, wait, where's my sword? This happens in leadership all the time. The greatest strategies often seem crazy at first, but that's because innovation feels uncomfortable. Here's what Gideon knew. The enemy wasn't just powerful, they were also fearful. So instead of attacking head-on, he used confusion and fear against them. At midnight, the 300 men broke their jars, revealing their torches, and blew their trumpets. The silence of the night was shattered. Suddenly, 300 trumpets echoed through the camp, and the Midianites were thrown into chaos. The Midianites, in their confusion, panicked. They mistook shadows for enemies. They turned on each other. And in the end, the 300 defeated the mighty Midianite army, not through strength but through strategy. Think about this. 300 men, blowing trumpets, holding torches, and breaking jars. This wasn't a traditional military attack, it was a psychological attack. Gideon knew that fear could defeat an army just as easily as weapons could. And that's exactly what happened. The Midianites, in their confusion, fled. The 300 had won. But here's the real leadership lesson in this. Leadership isn't about strength or numbers. It's about using your resources wisely, thinking creatively, and inspiring those around you to do the impossible. Gideon's story teaches us that leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about taking that first step, even when you don't have all the answers. When you surround yourself with the right people, think creatively, and lead with courage, anything is possible. We all face moments when the odds are stacked against us. The battle ahead seems too difficult. But remember, like Gideon, you have the power to lead with courage and strategy. Gideon's story is a reminder that true leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about being willing to take the first step. And when you do, you'll find the strength and strategy to lead, no matter the size of the challenge.